almost 700,000 views. Neil deGrasse Tyson's 5-minute takedown of right-wing hosts.
Why do you care? What business is it of yours to require that I fulfill your inability to think of gender on a spectrum?
Neil deGrasse Tyson went on the Triggernometry podcast.
The people who watch this YouTube channel are leaving comments claiming he's an intellectual pile driver on that boy, an intellectual titan. It's remarkable how we can look at the same thing and take completely different things away from it.
Because when we wake up in the morning, we exaggerate whatever feature we want to portray the gender of our choice.
I disagree with that, because when I wake up in the morning, I'm not thinking about what do I need to do in order to project this gender today. Interesting start.
Today, I feel 80% female, 20% male. I'm gonna put on makeup. I'm gonna do that. Tomorrow, I might feel 80% male. I'll remove the makeup and I'll wear a muscle shirt.
You viewing this video, when you wake up in the morning, do you think like that? If you're a woman, you don't put on makeup because you're feeling less female today? Or is it, who am I going to see today? What am I doing today? Should I wear makeup?
Who you decide is male and female in the street is a construct of style and trends and what the beauty industrial complex wants you to see.
So now this is a result of the beauty industrial complex. It's just a game played for money.
They'll wear a skirt, but maybe have a beard, or they'll mix and match that in whatever way
Neil,
you want.
Sorry.
Hold on. I'm not, wait, I'm almost done. So,
okay.
If a person using the tools of the beauty industrial complex wants to mix and match this,
yeah,
and they are expressing their freedom in a free country to do so, why is your job to tell them not to?
Okay.
That's my only point.
That's usually where these arguments go. It's like, why do you care? You shouldn't care, because when you're in a bathroom, it's not like you're being exposed to anything. You can't see anything. That doesn't address at all the changing room. And it's also a larger discussion, because this can be applied in so many different cases.
First of all, I don't know a single person, and we've talked to trans people on the show. We have trans employees at Triggernometry. We've spoken to all sorts of people about this issue. I do not know a single person who wants to prevent people from dressing how they want, or behaving how they want, or choosing any name that they want.
If you want to put on a dress and you have a beard and you're a guy, fine. That's not the argument here at all. But Neil deGrasse Tyson continues to obsess upon that.
Problem is,
so you don't, but you know such people are out there.
I'm sure such people exist, in the same way that there are people who believe that the earth is flat and so on.
There are people that exist like that. Of course, the extremes exist.
The reason the conversations become an issue is that we assign and allow certain privileges to people based on their sex. If you are female, you get to go to places that only other females are in.
He articulates this very well.
In other words, we carve out certain areas where your sex matters tremendously, even though we may respect your right everywhere else to believe that you are whatever you are, to dress however you are, etc.
And that is the heart of the issue. That's the real argument here. And Neil deGrasse Tyson is just dancing around that.
So your claim that today you woke up and put lipstick on and grew your hair out long and tweezed out your mustache and whatever, and therefore you are female, has an impact on other people in certain contexts in which that is a problem.
You gave only 2 contexts. Do you have others?
There are so many potential examples of how this could impact women and men, and how it's just simply the potential, the capacity that is here for unfair treatment is immense.
It is essential, people would argue, to protect women from unfair competition and from various risks for which female-only spaces already exist. That's why people are having this conversation. Okay. It's not out of bigotry.
Do you have more than those 2 examples? And
I'm not sure that's entirely true, that it's not out of bigotry. I think there's an enormous amount of bigotry involved in the conversation.
Each of those in turn.
That's the response that this YouTuber gives, Progressive Perspective gives. It's Well, I think there's a lot of bigotry involved in this conversation. Like, how do you measure that, though, man? Like, can you contend with the logic at all?
So, but you don't seem to have a third example. So, and even if you do, we presume that would be a very distant third compared to those two cases. All right.
No, there's a third one I can give you very easily in this country.
What about prisons? Men who identify as women, should they be housed in women's prisons?
For politics, we have female-only shortlists for positions in Parliament. Therefore,
I didn't know about that. That's interesting.
This is larger than just the bathrooms or the changing rooms. This changes the very meaning of being a woman. It, by definition, affects women's rights.
Why were women underrepresented to begin with? What kind of bias exists within Parliament or among the voters, maybe even the female voters, that prevented the representation from being there in the first place?
Here, the trigonometry guys, yeah, I could see, like, you are setting yourself up around this equity argument.
That's a whole other social question that maybe can and should be answered at a deeper level than a quota coming in after the fact.
So Neil deGrasse Tyson just made an argument against equity. Don't impose quotas at the end upon the result. Allow equal opportunity, leave people to their own devices, and allow them to organize themselves accordingly as they will.
Here in Manhattan, where I live, practically all bathrooms are either multi-gender or solo bathrooms, so only one person at a time, or you walk into a space and there's stalls that are closed off, but then you exit the stall and you come to a communal sink. Okay?
Yes.
So it's a solvable problem.
That's the only logical argument you can make, is to say, well, there can't really be any shared women in one space, whether it's a spa or whatever. It's like, no, that you're going to have to box them in, ironically, in their own little miniature changing rooms.
I think that Neil deGrasse Tyson's point is you can try and keep everybody in the boxes that they're in, or you can look for ways to solve emerging problems, right? And the bathroom example is one of those. Well, the infrastructure. Yeah, sure. It's going to involve some change.
What you want to be progress can't override what's important to anyone else.
So I'm wondering whether the future of those sports is you don't contest gender with gender, you contest hormone ratios.
There are other differences between men and women just in hormonal levels.
Given what we know about human physiology. So why not rise to that occasion and solve it rather than take your older view of the world and force modern emergent conduct of people to fit that?
His argument is that we need to restructure the fabric of reality to fit new thinking that thinks all of this is malleable.
It does scratch how gendered our society is. And you could say, well, that's because there's men and women, and that's just the way things are. But I get really skeptical when that's just the way things are argument comes up.
I encounter arguments such as this. It says, well, there's no such thing as anything beyond the reach of man. There's no such thing as reality itself. Things are never just the way they are. It's never beyond our reach.
That problem. So you don't even have to have that question.
Whose opportunities are being curtailed today because they are being forced to compete, whether in sports or elsewhere, against people who have some kind of advantage over them.
We're in a transitional period, so we have to figure that out. But the way to figure out things that require solutions to progressive change is not to regress it to how things once were. If that were the case, I would still be drinking from a segregated water fountain.
And then he starts comparing the biological differences between men and women to segregated water fountains, which is just a logical leap.
So maybe we need some new stuff, or we need to put everything back in the box and we need to protect the women and maintain the status quo, which just doesn't feel very progressive.
The progress does come at the expense of women and what is fair to them. That's a real problem.
Like literally, let's make progress. We need to progress.